What if the 2011 Justin Timberlake movie In Time was actually a romantic comedy? Let's talk about Running on Empty. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk to you about Running on Empty, which is coming to theaters on August 9th, 2024. It's a romantic comedy that takes the idea of what if your dating was determined by how long you would live? Is this movie worth your time? Well, my hot take is I think you should watch later. I think you should wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. I liked a lot about it. I really liked the concept. I liked the strong ending. And it has a lot of good drama, but overall, I didn't think that the comedy part of the rom-com was as strong as it could be. And it did feel like it was a little bit, I don't know, top heavy. Like there was a long buildup at the start and then kind of concluded fairly quickly. So overall, I enjoyed a lot about it, but I think you should wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. So all that being said, I'm gonna tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, and if you don't have time for it, maybe you don't have enough time left, then I would skip the ending section. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Running on Empty, you have Mortimer, who is a mortician, Mortimer the mortician, and he finds out how long he has left to live. And that affects a lot of things about him because it is not as long as he expected. So this affects his relationship. This affects his view on life. Is it for better or for worse? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the cast. You have a really good cast. I love Keir Gilchrist as the lead. He has like a really fun, quirky persona. Like he's a mortician, so he's always in like a suit and it looks perfect. He kind of has a, kind of a rigid sense of humor, but he opens up here and there. I also love Lucy Hale as a person who works at one of these dating services. She is kind of a fun, I don't know, reasonable breath of fresh air in this movie. And then Jay Pharoah is fantastic in his limited scenes. He doesn't have a ton of time in the movie, but he is really fun when he gets in there. The second thing I liked the concept. Look, In Time was an interesting movie. It wasn't great, but it was fun. And I like the idea here. It's not the same, right? You don't have like time as a currency, but I like the idea of, does knowing when you die change your kind of view on life, change your view on relationships, change some of the fundamental things that you do with your life? I thought that was an interesting idea. I liked it. I thought it was kind of a fun setup, and it does lead to some, dilemmas in the movie. And the third thing I loved, I like the drama. Like I said, I think this movie has kind of better drama than comedy. The comedy almost feels second, even though it's not like second in this movie. The dramatic scenes are much better. There's some really good dramatic moments. As you can imagine, when you're dealing with life and kind of, legacy and what's important to you, there are some big dramatic moments, and the film definitely shines in those parts. And the last thing I loved, I liked the ending. I thought the ending was really good. I liked the way that it kind of concluded. I liked the way that you kind of saw some of the perspectives kind of come full circle there. So overall, there were a lot of things I did like about this movie. So why is it a watch later? Well, things I didn't love as much. The first, I didn't find it very funny, and that just could be my sense of humor. Could have been my mindset, but for me, there were funny moments. Like you got Jay Pharoah, of course there are funny moments. You got Jim Gaffigan, like you're gonna have funny scenes, but the comedy just didn't hit as well for me. Some of the more ridiculous things, and especially involving like a debt that Mortimer accrues, it wasn't really that funny to me. I think it was supposed to be, but it didn't really hit for me. So overall, you got a good cast, you got some humorous moments, but for me it was kind of hit or miss. And the second thing I didn't love as much, I'm gonna call it too long of an opening. This movie feels like it could have been rebalanced. You got about an hour of like, it's not the opening sequence. You have a short opening, but kind of the build up to the romance part takes a long time. It's like an hour of background and some other things, and then you get to like the part that you've been waiting for, and the movie's over in like 25 minutes. And it feels like they could have rebalanced that, maybe had some of the conflicts work their way into this latter part of the movie so that you have a kind of more balanced overall movie. Because it feels like when you finally get to the point that everyone's been waiting for, the movie's already over. So I'm not really going to go into specifics there, but I'll go into that in the ending section. So overall, I liked Running on Empty. I think you should wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. But if you do check it out, it's coming to theaters on August 9th, 2024, and then coming to VOD on August 27th, 2024. So if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into the ending discussion right now. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off because there will be spoilers. And there are going to be spoilers here, so I would turn it off now if you don't want to know. So the movie starts with the ending. You've got more, like, you don't even know who these characters are, but there's some sort of piece of paper that runs into the road, and this person, we find out later is Mort, runs into the road, picks it up, says, "I got it," and then gets hit by a car. You're like, okay, that was weird. And then you find out, then the movie actually starts 293 days earlier. It's in Sherman Oaks. It's in like the LA area. And you've got Mortimer, who is a mortician. He works for his family's funeral business. He prepares bodies for funerals. And he also has this kind of like quirky idea, this thing that he picked up from reading about funerals in other countries. He calls them action funerals. So some people, when their funeral happens, they get put into this like, scene of something that they love. So if they loved surfing, they're in like a surf scenario. It's almost like a diorama where that body is kind of like front and center. It makes them almost, kind of the star of their funeral, almost like a wax museum kind of thing. And I'm sure for some people, maybe it's comforting to see their loved ones do their thing that they loved one last time. So he's fairly creative. He's very quirky, but he works in this funeral home. His uncle owns it, played by Jim Gaffigan, and it is like their family business. His dad and his uncle used to be in it together, and then his dad died. So now it's just his uncle running the business. He seems to be the only child that is involved, but they have a nice team. Now, Mort also has a fiance named Nicole, and they are looking to buy a house. And so they're really trying to get this house. It is a tough market, as you can imagine. And while they're discussing with the agent's like, well, what are your LDCs? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I kind of know a little bit about real estate. What is an LDC? You find out very quickly. It is a life death count. So in this world, you can take a test, kind of like, a swab test that will determine fairly accurately when your natural death date would be. So obviously it doesn't account for things that you can't plan for, accidents, suicides, things like that. But if you were to live out your life, it has a fairly accurate timing of when you would die. So they really want to get this house. The people selling this house, want a couple in there for a long time. They want like a family to live there, that kind of stuff. And so Mort and Nicole get their LDCs tested. Now, Nicole opens hers and she is devastated because she now knows when she's going to die. Well, it's like 60 years in the future, so she'll be okay. Mort opens his and his says 345 days, so less than a year. Kind of a big shock, not the greatest situation, and that causes some turmoil in Mort's life, as you can imagine, when you find out that you are going to die in less than a year. So first thing, his girlfriend breaks up with him. His fiance breaks up. So first thing, his fiance breaks up with him. She, doesn't want to go through that pain, so she just cuts it off. That was a weird situation. I would think that maybe she would want to spend the last few days she could with him, but she doesn't want that. So he all of a sudden Mort finds himself, alone and dealing with this situation. Now, you would think he would be able to handle it because he's around death all the time, and he has a somewhat pragmatic view about some of the stuff, but it still affects him. His family doesn't really help him that much. I mean, they're all sad about it. They're all talking to him about it. So eventually, as he's trying to figure out what to do next, what to do with the last time in his life, he finds this dating service called Death Do Us Part Dating. And they are a dating service that matches people based on their death date. So like, if you're gonna be alive for 20 years, maybe you find a partner who's gonna be alive for 20 years. So you can kind of live out your life together and kind of pass at a similar time. Mort signs up. He goes. The first part is this interview, and it is a really awkward interview. Lucy Hale plays Kate, who is the interviewer. She is interviewing him. It is cold and awkward because Mort doesn't really know what to do. He's just like kind of like answering the questions, kind of how you would want someone to answer in a dating service. And Kate does a really good job. She's like asks him about his job, has him open up, and then he kind of opens up and gets a little bit more kind of life in him. It's ironic he gets life in him when he talks about his job as a mortician, but it is a fun scene. It is fun to see his character kind of open up and talk about things he's interested in. And it leads to a video that's really good. So this, fairly positive interview, this fairly positive interaction with this person named Kate causes him to kind of redo his life. He starts to pick up his apartment. He cleans up his stuff. He'd been kind of like wallowing for a bit. And he goes out to a bar. And when he goes to a bar, he meets a girl. And she seems very nice. She seems very forward. She uses him to like, get this person who's like creeping on her away. But then she seems very nice to him. They kind of have a very fast courtship. She asks him to come home with her, and he does. And then when they get there, she asks how he's going to pay. And unfortunately for Mort, well, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, she is an escort. And so he didn't think about this. He didn't plan this. He didn't think she was an escort. He thought that she was just very nice. But she is an escort, and she's wondering how he's going to pay. Now, Mort says that there's been a mistake. I'm sorry. And she takes pity on him. So she's going to give him a freebie. And while she's getting ready to give him a freebie, she drops dead. He looks at her ID. Her death date is today. Like I said, fairly accurate. She seemed very healthy, and now she is gone. Now, Mort is mortified, as you'd imagine, so he decides to leave. But as he's leaving, a pimp comes in, and is asking about this girl and asking about Rita and if she treated him okay. He's like, yeah, she was great. Without, she's great. I gotta go. And the pimp's like, hold on, let me just check with Rita. He goes to find her, and Rita's dead. Now, Mort takes this opportunity to run, but unfortunately for him, the pimp is faster. He tries to get in his car. The pimp gets to him, throws him out of his car, yells at him. He explains the situation, but the pimp's like, you still got to pay me for the services. And eventually he says $500, but Mort doesn't have that cash yet. So the pimp takes his car as collateral. So unfortunately for Mort, he doesn't have a car. He now owes this pimp some money, and he has to spend the rest of his time on a bike. Now, doesn't let them get him down. He goes on a few dates, but they don't really go very well. There's one date that went well, but that person doesn't want any commitment. And so she intentionally dates people with like very close death dates because she doesn't want to get locked down. So she seems to date people that are about to die so that she can move on. One person they don't have any connection at all, and one person steals his jacket. And not a great set of dates for Mort. He goes back to the Death Do Us Part dating service and is like gonna yell at them to like get his money back. And Kate seems sympathetic. She's like, "Hey, look, I just take the videos. Like, I'm sorry you had this horrible situation." He tells her about the person that stole his jacket, which also had his wallet in there, so he doesn't have a wallet. And she's like, "Here, let me buy you breakfast." They go to a local pier. They have breakfast burritos. It is a lovely scene. They seem to like, again, have some chemistry. They're talking, and Kate helps him get his wallet back. She like calls the person that stole his coat and is like, look, just bring the wallet back so we don't have to get the authorities involved. So she seems to be helping him get his life around, and he seems to like her. Now, while they're talking, Kate asks if he has anything on his bucket list since, he's going to die soon. She wants to know. And he says he'd like to climb Mount Fuji. And she's like, they make these things called airplanes. You could go do that. Like, what else are you going to do? And Mort, doesn't seem to want to do that. I think, it costs a lot of money. He seems very practical. And he seems to also not want to kind of make big changes in his life. We'll see if he does. Maybe he does. You'll have to keep watching to find out. But that date does go well. So a little bit later, Kate calls Mort and asks if he's free again. And so then there's this like dating montage scene. It's weird because nothing tells you that this is over a series of, I assume days, maybe weeks, but you kind of have to get the sense because their clothes change and they do so much in LA. Like I can't even imagine being able to do multiple of these things. They go to like Venice Beach, they go to a movie, they play pool, they play darts, they play shuffleboard, they go to a different bar, they do karaoke, they do bowling, they have like a family poker night with Mort's family. Again, it seems like this is multiple dates over time, but you don't get a sense of how long this is. It would have been nice to, I don't know, have some natural break so you can see like how long this is. Because you just kind of have to assume because you see all these dates, it's almost like a montage, but it's not kind of key to you that it's a montage. But you also see them looking up prices for a trip to Japan. So it seems like maybe they're going to go to Japan. Now, eventually, this pimp situation has gotten worse. Mort didn't really care about his car. So the pimp keeps harassing him. And remember that originally it was $500. So when the pimp tracked him down later, because Mort was going to get paid, he said now it's 1,000. It was 500 the first day, and now it's 1,000. And Mort eventually just kind of like ignores him. But unfortunately for him, the pimp, when he finds out that he's dating Kate, he goes to Kate's house and he threatens her. And this really scares Kate. And this causes Mort to have to open up to what happened. He kind of lied at the start by saying that he wasn't there to like hook up with her. He didn't hire an escort. I mean, he kind of didn't. It's kind of a gray area, but he did lie to Kate. And so when he tells Kate the whole story, she is surprisingly okay with it. I thought this could be a moment where maybe she would be upset about this. They could have like a dramatic moment. Who knows? But she's surprisingly okay with it. But he's like, I gotta figure this out. I gotta get this done. So he meets the pimp on like the top of a parking garage and he brings cash. And at this point, the pimp is demanding $5,000. And so Mort comes there and he brings the cash and he gives it to him. He's like, it's $6,000. I knew you were gonna ask for more money. So it's $6,000. Let's just give me my car keys and let's get this done with. And the pimp's like, no, now you're gonna give me like $1,000 a week, or else I'm gonna tell, blah, 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 do all this stuff. And eventually Mort's like, no, and he kicks the pimp in the nuts and starts to run. So they have this like kind of not like this kind of like silly fight on the top of this parking garage where Mort's like running, the pimp tries to catch up to him. Eventually, Mort is like by the edge of the parking garage, and the pimp runs and like tries to get in. Mort dodges, and the pimp tumbles over the edge of the parking garage and falls to his death. And as he's falling, he looks up at Mort and says, "Make me look good." So that was fairly clever, right? Like the pimp knows he's a mortician, so he wants him to like look good at his funeral. So boom, his troubles are over now. The pimp's gone. I guess. I mean, I hope he's okay. I guess he doesn't really have that much time to live, so what does it really matter? But seems like the troubles are over. Now, after this, it seems like they are going to go on their date. They pack up, they head to the airport. At first, you weren't really sure if they were going together because it looked like Kate was just helping Mort take his luggage to the airport. But it seems like they are going to go on this trip to Fuji together. He's going to finally fulfill this like bucket list item, and Kate's coming too. Lovely, right? What a great way to end this movie. They're going to go on this beautiful trip. It'll be fine. And part contributing to this, like, is he going to take her or not? She gives him like this Japanese puzzle box that's supposed to take hours to solve and has a secret inside. And so you don't know what that is. And you're like, okay, maybe he'll do it on the plane and kind of see something. And eventually, as they're talking, as they're checking everything, Mort is naturally nervous. So he's checking everything. He's like, tickets. Did we forget the tickets? And I think Kate pulls them out. One of them pulls them out. And like, no, they're here. And there's tickets, right? So that means that they're both going. So they're both going to go on this trip. But the wind picks them up and pushes them out into the street. Must be like the Santa Ana's time, right? Like the winds are coming through, takes the tickets, pushes them out. Mort runs to grab them, and that's when we get that scene at the start of the movie. He grabs them, picks them up, and says, "Got him!" And then boom, gets hit by a car. Mort flies back. He hits his head. There's blood coming out of his head, so not good at all. Kate runs up to him and tells him to hang on. And he just turns around and says, "Thank you for everything. This has been the best time of my life." He says goodbye to Kate. And then they say goodbye in multiple languages because that's kind of one of the things that they did during one of their calls. They like say goodbye in various languages. So that's kind of the end of our journey. Then we see some more of that interview at the very start when Mort went to the Death Do Us Part dating service. And it's Kate asking, like, if you could do it over again, would you know your LDC? And Mort says, yeah, of course, which is kind of surprising. I don't know if he would have, but he says, yeah, of course, knowing isn't easy. And he lost someone he cared for, but he's on a different path now. And it's forced him to think about the meaning of life. And after finding out his death day, every day seems to matter more. So it's a really nice final speech, kind of a nice way to put this all into perspective. Now, so during the credits, we see one more date video. We see a date video from his uncle Barry, who's played by Jim Gaffigan. It's a little funny, piece. I was hoping we would see more. Like I wanted to see like Jay Pharoah up there. I wanted to see a couple of the other people do date videos. We just see one, but it is a nice little touch during the credits. So that is Running on Empty. Like I said, I think you should watch later. I liked a lot about it. There's a lot that is interesting about this movie, but it just feels like it could have been funnier, and it feels a little bit kind of off in terms of like time, like that whole sequence up until when uh Mort and Kate start dating is like an hour. So you get some time when Mort is dealing with the fallout of finding his death date, and then some time when he's like dating the other people and whatnot. And then you finally get to the part that you really want when him and Kate are starting to develop the relationship. And then, it's over. Like we don't see them go on a trip because that gets killed, I assume for budgetary purposes, but who knows? It would be nice to see them go to Fuji or at least have some scenes where it looks like they're going to Fuji. Their whole dating life is like this montage scene that looks like it's, multiple dates in one. So that feels kind of accelerated. It feels like this movie could have either been longer, which I would have been okay with, or could have been kind of pushed forward so that maybe him and Kate start dating at like minute 40 and you get a little bit more time when their relationship develops to really kind of make that part a little bit sweeter. And the ending, I did say I liked the ending. I thought the ending was nice, especially that last speech. I thought that speech was really good. It's a little bittersweet though because Mort doesn't ever get to go on his bucket list, but I guess he did find something that was more important to him. He did find Kate, so I guess it's kind of a happy-ish ending. And I guess I don't know, but that is Ryan on Empty. Like I said, I liked it. I think you should wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. But if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And hey, I don't know, would you find out your death date if you could? I don't think I would. I don't think I'd want to know that because that would make me very anxious. But let me know in the comments if you would. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.